I'm joined by Lee O'Brien, who is a singer-songwriter who's just about to release a new album of material, and the material, some of which has been co-written and also produced by Francis Rossi. I think we know something about that guy on this podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Lee. Tell us, the audience, perhaps who aren't familiar with your work, where were you musically before your upcoming material?
Morning, Jamie. Well, firstly, I've always been a drummer, first and foremost, in many bands over the years. So sort of been in the background a lot. Songwriting started probably back when I was 15, 16. I started to learn to play guitar. So I quickly learned that I had some ability to do, to put my hand at some songwriting, which, progressed over the years. Never really did anything with any of my songs because it was a confidence thing where I thought, are they good enough? So I was always quite happy playing the drums at the back and coming home and doing my songwriting. But yeah, as I say, quickly learned that over the years, I did realise there was something there. And I think one of the first things, a good few years ago now, I wrote a song or co-wrote a song for a film. And they used it twice in the film. It wasn't a very good film. It was okay, but listen, they used the song twice. So it obviously gave me the confidence to think, hold on a minute, I must have something here. But then again, left it alone for a while. Along the years, pestering Francis constantly, always trying to get into, because I knew I had these songs, and I just used to say, like, could you help me? Any chance you can help me do these songs? But obviously, being status quo for many years, have been so busy, which is brilliant for them and for him personally. Never got to pin him down. So the pandemic enabled us to do that.
And I mean, that's after sort of pestering him, to use your phrase, for so long. I mean, how from what I understand from reading up about this album, which is called This Is Me, and you've released 2 songs to promote that, which he's helped co-write with you. He allowed you to use not only his talents as a producer, but his studio and everything else. I mean, you must have been like, I'm on cloud 9 here.
Well, yeah, there was a bit of that. And also, let's not forget, he played on everything. Guitar, he played bass, keyboards, multi-talented. He's multi-talented. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it came about, I don't know whether you know this, that my wife's his cousin. That's how I met. My wife's a singer. Cut a long story short, I met her in a talent show. And then, so basically 20 years down the line, we're still together. So I've known Francis for 20 years, but as I say, he was very busy all the time with Quo. But to do this album, when I was sending him, I'd send him little bits, little clips I'd done on WhatsApp, and this was during lockdown. And so then, I think it was one track that isn't out yet, so I can't say too much about this one. But this is one that I'd written, started doing last year, and then obviously because of the lockdown, I picked the guitar back up, and then I sort of done a little demo and sent it to him. And he called me straight away, which made me think, oh, wow. And he had his guitar at hand and he was strumming the chords down the phone. So this was quite, weird for me. Going back to what you said, I mean, that firstly was really weird for like him. He's down the phone playing the guitar to me to the song. So he must have, really believed in what I was doing. That's when he offered me the studio. So going over there and starting to, to be honest, firstly, he didn't think he would get involved. He said, like, I could use his studio as long as I used Andy Brook, who's his engineer, and obviously Quo fans would know that he's the status quo guitar tech. So as long as I use Andy Brook, I was fine to go over there, and he just thought I would turn up, do a few songs, and I'd be on my merry way. That's what he thought. And it wasn't until the very first day that he popped over, and I was just in the process just playing a couple of little songs to Andy. And he obviously heard something there and thought, oh, look a minute, he's got something here. And then from that day on, he was in the studio from 10 till. He'd leave at around 5 because I was there 10 till 6. He was there 10 till 5 every single day, and literally got totally involved with producing and then obviously co-writing 3 of them. So, but yeah, it was to say it was strange with him. Obviously, I'm putting my songs on the line here to an absolute legend. So there was a bit of nervousness in that respect. But I've known him so long. I know him so well. So it was just banter with him all the time. I'd walk in there around summertime. I'd have a pair of shorts on, and he'd take the mickey out of what I was wearing. So there was always that. But that was, that's just him. But we just built up a songwriting partnership, I would call it now, because we really worked well together. It was a little bit of pressure because there were certain things where we'd be working on a part in a particular song, and I'm trying to move along. Let's not forget, he's been in the business many years, and he expects me to know exactly what he's doing. Do this. And I'm like, and now I'm flustered. I'm really flustered. But that was great. That's all part of the learning. He made me a better songwriter, a better guitar player, all round, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And the 2 songs that you have released thus far of recording this, You and I and This Is Me. We'll go through these one by one. I mean, you say that he played a lot of instruments on those songs.
Yeah, he did,
the intro.
On the whole album.
Yeah, the intro to that song, You and I, is basically. I mean, we'll get to how much you know about the Quo universe in a moment, but having listened to a lot of his solo stuff, work he's done with other people, and stuff in Quo, that is quintessentially Francis Rossi. And I suppose my question here is, how much of an input did he have on things like that?
Massive. Absolutely massive. I mean, incidentally, you're talking about, I keep saying that bloody word, incidentally. Yeah, that intro, there was a couple of little versions that he worked on for that. And you can hear obviously the female vocalist on the beginning of that, which is my wife. But yeah, he had something else for that, which was great. We've still got, this is one thing about Francis, whatever we do in the studio, he will never delete any of it. It's always there for backup. So if we think we're not quite sure about this, we'll go back to the old. It's always there. And I suppose credit's got to go to Andy Brook for that as well, because Andy would never throw anything away. So that would be the pair of them. But yeah, I mean, very much with every single song, with the, because he produced it, but the production side of it, the arrangements, a lot of my arrangements were obviously already there, but yeah, they needed a bit of tweaking here and there, and he put his magical sprinklish dust over it, because, yeah, I mean, I think he's done a fantastic job. The album is fantastic. And when you say about the Quo-esque, you can obviously hear Francis on it without a shadow of a doubt. But I don't hear it a lot on all the songs, to be honest. There's a little bit of country stuff that comes through because he's massively into his country, as you well know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there is a couple of songs, especially You and I. You could definitely, that wouldn't be out of place if he tweaked it a little bit and took it on stage. He could play that easily. Yeah, so I mean, that was a song I'd written about Natalie, his cousin. I think I was here one morning. And I sort of ran up to my little studio. So I didn't have no idea about writing that at that time. Didn't know what I was going to do. I just had the basics of the chords. And I went up to my little studio. It probably took me 15, 20 minutes to get down what I had. And I just literally thought straight away, I'll just come back down to the house and said, I've just written you a song. It's not a love song, as you can hear, but it's obviously about her. But yeah, when I took it to Francis, it was very up-tempo. And I thought, yeah, we're onto something here. Because I was taking some of these very late on. I'd already had a package of songs to take to him, and these ones were not afterthoughts, but certainly You and I. Sorry, This Is Me was the very, very last track we worked on, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will. Indeed. I mean, this is fascinating because we do get some idea as to what it's like to be in the studio with Francis and work alongside him. but not quite in this detail. And
no, it's brilliant.
And I mean, how do you feel as a songwriter, who was basically in the shadow before, behind the kit, and now your music and your ideas are being embraced? How does that feel for you?
It feels amazing because, as I said to you previously, it was a confidence thing. And Francis always says this in interviews, where we're insecure little show-offs. He always says it, and it's true. So I didn't have the confidence to do anything with my songs, and I wish I had years ago, but things happen for a reason. If I did my stuff years ago, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about the situation with Francis, because I possibly would have done it with someone else. This was meant to happen. I truly believe this was meant to happen. To be sitting there writing songs with him there's no getting away from it. His family, yes, it was mind blowing. I'm sitting there with a rock legend writing songs. It is. I suppose you've got to pinch yourself a little bit, but yeah, it was brilliant. And hopefully we can move forward and do some more stuff, because we've certainly got some more in us to do.
Well, to go on to the next track, This Is Me, which, as you know, is the name of a Quo song, but this is not related. This is something...
I never knew that. Let's just put that out there. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's completely different, and it's a very uplifting, driving rock song, and certainly, whereas You and I can be termed as you say, the kind of thing where I could imagine Francis jumping on stage, this is you. This is purely you in that thing. I mean, there's a narrative going through, and you've got a music video on YouTube. I mean, what inspired you to do that?
I was frightened to death to do that, really, to be honest, because initially we were going to get actors. Obviously, there's actresses there. We were going to get an actor to play my part. Francis was like, "This is you. You should be playing that part. You shouldn't be getting an actor to do that." And it was probably a nervous thing, thinking, "Really, can I pull that off in the video?" I think I did. I think it's quite good. How did it come about? When we decided to go with This Is Me as the main single, when we picked it, Andy Brook sort of mentioned that maybe we should get a video for this. It'd be good to do a video. And Nick and Joe, who did the video, obviously come up with this narrative. You see, it is sort of, I suppose, how my life's gone, where I've gone with different women. Not saying I've been with loads of women, I might add, but going with women who didn't believe my dreams. So I needed to get to, go through my life to find the actual person who really believed in what I was doing. And I'm sure that comes through in the video, because that's how my life sort of panned out. So I've ended up with someone who really believes in what I do, in my wife. So it was a great process to do it. Obviously, you see that we used Francis' studio first in it, and then a flat, and also used Andy Brook. If you see at the end of the video, there's an open mic night. That was in the Brook studio, Andy Brook studio. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking, because I'm on camera, people to see me, and did I come across right? Once I was in it. It's that. I mean, that little part really, the open mic night. It just felt like I was at a gig, sitting there playing the guitar. It was fantastic. When I first see it for the first time, I was blown away by it. I've got to be honest. Sent it to Francis straight away, and he just put brilliant. So, and normally he would come back with something sarcastic, but he loved it. He did love it.
Yeah, I think it really sells the song well, and certainly at the moment where you can't go out and gig anywhere. I mean, do you have ambitions to do that? Perhaps once things are a little less restricted.
Certainly, we're trying to get a venue for an album launch. So yeah, we're trying to sort that. That'll be the first thing, hopefully, that we do, is an album launch somewhere in central London. Fingers crossed. But yeah, and then who knows what will happen, because we never thought we'd get this far. As I said to you early on, Francis just thought I would just do a couple of songs and be on my way. He didn't, we didn't realise it was going to. I'm sitting here talking to you now. This is great, So who knows what will come of this? As going back to you and this is me writing this with Francis. We knew, because this was the last track. This is what I was going to say to you. This was the last track that I sat there. I said, when we had 10, we were looking at putting 12 on, and he's sorting out the time schedule. When we need 40 minutes, we only need one more. And I said, look, I've got this other song I've started to write. It needs a little bit of work, but I'd like to play this to you. I think this could be great. And he's little sarcastic way, yeah, let's give it a go. So I started it, and he was taken with it straight away. So we got to work on it. I don't think the chorus was there, the middle eight. No, so we did. Yeah, I think I had the first verse, maybe the second verse. We'd been sitting there. He was doing. I think he might have been working on the middle eight section, and I was just sitting on the sofa. So there was no words in that part. I just need to be the way you were. That part is very beatly. I don't know whether that comes across to you, but it's very, very beatly. And as I say, there was no words. They were sorting out the chords for that. And within seconds of him finding the chords for that, I wrote that just come out of nowhere straight away. And I sort of put my hand up. I just written the middle eight, which was great, and it worked straight away. But the chorus we worked on together. I think we did a little bit of that in the garden. Andy was doing something with the production, and he said, sort of come out. So when we're both sitting in the garden with the guitars, and that was crazy, Yeah, it was good. Good process.
Yeah, it sounds. I mean, certainly, as a fan, that's unreal.
It is.
That is an unreal experience. I mean, you can't say too much about the rest of the album at the moment, but what can people expect from it?
I wouldn't say surprises, but I just, when I listen to the album, songs, I just think, wow, this one's not coming out as a single. People are going to be, because there is friends of mine say, why are you not using this as a single? Well, I don't know. When we're talking to the PR team, they've done all this before. They know what singles are singles. Certain songs, they might be wrong. The public will decide once the album's out. They'll go, oh, this one's great. They're all really good. But yeah, they're certainly, as I say, there's no surprises, but there's some really good tracks there that people will say, you should have brought this on out. But that's, for me, that makes it a great album, because you play it, and obviously there is certain songs you might need to listen to it a few times, and they grow on you each time you listen to them, So, but certainly I think You and I grabs you, as you said, mentioned with the intro, it grabs you straight away. This Is Me, I think that's another one that grabs you, the chorus. But yeah, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what's to come. I really do.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Now, to move on slightly, but only because this podcast is the Quo-Cast, so I'm going to ask you a few sort of strange questions here. What was your kind of knowledge of the Quo universe beforehand? Like, how much had you heard?
What, of Status Quo?
Of Status Quo.
Well, going back, way back, my dad was a musician, singer and a drummer. And he was in a band in the 70s with Jeff Rich. My dad was the front man. Mm-hmm. Jeff Rich was the drummer. So that was 77, 70, around that time. Anyway, I think they were signed to a label, a German label, Areola Records, I think it was. Didn't really turn out. Didn't go anywhere, really. It's a shame, because there were some great songs. I think I've spoken to another Quo guy who's actually got the singles from, what's the band called? Oh, God. Scoundrel. Goodbye City Lights, and you might have heard of them. But yeah, Jeff was the drummer on that. Jeff went on to, I think, do a little bit with Def Leppard, I'm sure. Then obviously moved on to Status Quo. My aunt and my uncle, massive Quo fans. So I was around Quo at a very young age. So yeah, I was very aware of Status Quo. late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, definitely. With obviously, then you get like in the army now. I spoke to Francis recently about this. Was it John Farnham? Do you know? Have you heard of John Farnham? You're the Voice.
Yeah.
Well, he had a big hit. That's my dad's cousin, John Farnham. He had a big hit with You're the Voice, and it was around the same time as that Quo did in the army now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was very much at the forefront of our family life. Like, you know, watching Quo, they were massive. But them songs, massive, rocking all over the world. In the army now. So yeah, brought up around listening to Status Quo.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned John Farnham, because I'm sure that bass player Rhino has actually mentioned that back in the 80s, Quo attempted to record a version of that song because it was big. Francis did tell me.
Yeah, Francis did tell me that. I think I mentioned that John Farnham was my dad's cousin, and he said to me, he said, we nearly did it before in the army now. We nearly did a version of You're the Voice. He said, but your dad's cousin, had a number 2 with it. He said, so obviously then we went on and done in the army now. So that was, I mean, I still think about that. There's a little seed in my head. I'd love to hear them do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong. John Farnham's version is brilliant, but I'd love to see what Status Quo would do with it. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I think most fans would say the closest they got to a song like that was probably The Power of Rock and Roll on the Perfect Remedy album in '89, when it's sort of this stadium rock type thing. Right. I mean, you yourself, like, you know, you're a musician, you play perhaps a certain type of music or a variation on several different things. What are you listening to outside of your own music?
It's funny, right? Because I mean, obviously the Beatles, I was massive when I was younger. Going into the 90s, growing up from a teenager and then going into the 90s, Happy Mondays, Stone Roses, then it was obviously Oasis, The Verve, Paul Weller, Sting, definitely some Sting, and Phil Collins, obviously being a left-handed drummer and a singer as well. Definitely loved Phil Collins growing up as well. So yeah, but then when I was with covers band, when my dad moved to Spain, so I took over from him. But there was a period where I didn't really listen to much music because I'd be working. I was gigging so much that the last thing I wanted to do was listen to music. I would literally finish a gig, get in my van, drive home, and I'd have just talk radio on. I didn't want to hear any music, but that goes back from my dad really, because my dad was the same. And when I was a youngster, I'd go, he'd take me to work with him, because I'd always go to go work with my dad, and I'd just sit in a corner. Never had a lesson in my life. I just watched my dad. But I used to say, "Put some music on, Dad," and he'd say, "No, I can't listen to music. I'll play it all night. I don't want to be listening to it." So that rubbed off on me really. But now I know why, because your ears are still ringing from singing and playing all night. But definitely in the 90s, massive with those sort of bands, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I'm glad that somebody else feels that way, because certainly going to gigs and stuff, I cannot listen to music afterwards, because like you say, you have that ringing in your ears.
Yeah.
You want to hold on to that feeling as a gig goer, and as you say, you kind of want to get away from it and go into other directions. I mean, going into being a teenager and having all that amazing music of the 90s, that guitar based stuff.
Fantastic.
I mean, certainly, you know, we're on a Status Quo podcast. That's an era where it would, you know, it wasn't necessarily about the guitars somewhat. I mean, have you heard anything from that era around the time that Oasis were doing stuff like the Thirsty Work album, for example?
I don't know that. I don't know that album.
No, came out in about 1994, and but personally, I mean, you can tell he might be impressed that you know the album if you tell him about the Thirsty Work album. Tell him it's one of my favourites, because there is the melody there. The Quo fans will not like the fact I said that, but It's one of my favorites because the melodies, it shows them as songwriters as opposed to just what can sometimes be just about the guitars and the instrumental. I mean, you mentioned earlier about writing that middle eight and about how you said it was kind of Beatlesy. I mean, when
I think so. Yeah.
When you're thinking of like melodies and stuff, like where does that come from?
Well, I really don't know. I've had these chats with Francis before about starting to write songs because I'm having this problem with, especially This Is Me. When I first started writing This Is Me, it didn't mean anything because I sat there with the guitar. This is how I write songs. I'll sit there, I'll pick up the guitar, find some little chords. That sounds really nice. And then words will just flow. So look in the mirror, what can you see? Painting some pictures out to the sea. This is me. I have no idea where that came from. It just came out. But I loved it. I thought, I like that. Yeah. So it didn't, didn't necessarily mean anything. But then obviously people see different twists on it, and obviously going through, then it obviously meant what it means now. But again, when I took the song to Francis, he sees something totally different. So this is why we twist it with a chorus. Like it's about you. This is me. Who I want to be and who I am. So although I'm writing words that just come out, there's obviously something in there that means something. But because I was saying to him, what do I say? People are constantly saying, what does that mean? He said, well, you don't have to say what it means, because some of the best songs don't have meanings, but people make up their own minds. Yeah. And I said, really? He said, yeah. So go with that. So yeah. So that is going back to your question with how do I come up with these melodies. And I don't know. I was sitting there yesterday. I've got this thing you can see behind me, new piano. And I started writing something yesterday, and I'm not great at piano. I'm only learning. But I've started something. I've waited all day to play it to my wife when she came home from work, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And there's something there. Needs a little bit of tweaking. Some of the lyrics. My wife's a great lyricist, so she said, "I'd really like to sit down with you the weekend and work on this lyrically with you." I was like, "Brilliant." Because that'd be fantastic. So I'll just come up with stuff. I think I'm quite, I don't know, say gifted. I've got this gift where I can just find these melodies and they sound really good. With my harmonies, I think with a band, like I said before, growing up watching my dad, he was in a three-piece band, three-part harmonies. I learned my craft there. I mean, we used to do a lot of Beatles stuff, and that, it sounded great. And I learned that. With them, so, but yeah, I love the process of just love sitting there and just picking up the guitar, because sometimes it's difficult. You sit there and you think, where do I start? What do I do? So there was a time, well, I won't go too much into this because this is other stuff that I've written. The album's already done, so I'm now writing other stuff. So I'm now sending more over to Francis, and I texted him. I said, I've hit a wall. Actually hit a wall. And he said, just come away from it. This happens. Just come away from it. Walk away. Anyway, I did this. I went into the kitchen. I come back to the guitar, and I had the capo, and I thought, right, if I'm stuck, I'm going to just try something different. I slid the capo up to the 7th fret, I believe, and just found this song. And I started and I was just like, oh, wow. And I recorded it. The words just came out. Recorded it, sent it over to him, and his response to me was, "Bloody hell, you should hit a wall more often. This is great." And I was like, "Great." So it is. I don't know where it comes from. I'm blessed with it. I just feel like, yeah. Sometimes I sit there and think, where do you find this? Where do you find it? I don't know, but I'm glad I do. I'm glad I do.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe all those years gigging solidly kind of helped you?
Possibly. Yeah. I never really, never used to think about writing. When I was with the band, I was so busy gigging Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for probably a solid 10, 11 years. It might be more. I can't even remember now. But I never used to sit there and, when I'm playing and think, no, I need to write a song, because I was so busy just, that was my job, just going out gigging. It's only when I'd come home, sit at home, maybe weekends, if I had a week at night off, then I'd sit there and write. Some of these songs go back to the early 90s when I started writing some of my stuff, and you never think nothing's going to happen with any of them. And maybe I should have brought a couple of them forward to previous bands, but it was very much when I joined up these particular bands, they had their material. I didn't feel like I could bring that to the table, so I didn't really. I would never mention it. So it was just something I had indoors. My little guitar, I'd sit there. It'd always be next to me, and I would just play along. But yeah, I suppose definitely playing in that band for them many years taught me, molded me how I am today. Definitely. I mean, I've said this in a previous interview. There was an interview with Sting, and he said, unless you've done the working men's clubs and the little clubs, literally playing to 4 or 5 people, you've not done your apprenticeship, which is so very true. Done that many a times where you've just played to like nobody, 3 or 4 people, and it can be soul destroying. But you try and you play your very best. You just get on that stage and you just imagine there's loads of people there, But
maybe that's kind of why Francis sees something in you, because he had a very similar background where just kind of playing solidly like that. So, I suppose you probably speak a language others wouldn't understand. Possibly.
I do feel like maybe he sees a little bit of me in him when he was younger. Maybe, I don't know. He certainly believes in what I'm doing. And listen, he wouldn't have given me the time to do it. He would have just said, do a few songs and be on my merry way. But yeah, he loved the process, as did I. I mean, just registering my songs on PRS, as you know, 3 songs, and I'm filling out the co-written by Francis Rossi. It's like, that is amazing to be able to see. And even on the promo CD that I've got here, songs written by Leo Bryan and co-written by Francis Rossi. It is strange. It is strange, but fantastic.
Oh, it must be such a bizarre feeling, and I'm sure a dream for many, one of which you're living. Now, I will let you go in just a moment, but what kind of nuggets of advice has Francis given? What is, you've said a lot during the last 30 minutes or so, but is there anything that kind of stands out to you? Something where you've gone, I never thought of it like that?
That's a difficult question. Never thought of it like that. No. I've just really, really enjoyed the process with him. And obviously learned a lot. I've learned a hell of a lot with the way that he structures things. I mean, he is so clever. People just see the Quo stuff as like, he is a fantastic songwriter, a fantastic producer. So there's certainly things that I'll take on board that I've learned from him. But that is quite a difficult question, James.
That's all right. That's fine. I mean, you're right there. He's very underrated when it comes to songwriting, because, like you say, people have a certain view of the Quo. I mean,
it's the famous 3 chords. But look at the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best songs are written with 3 chords, around 3 or 4 chords. So that's just nonsense. That's just people. Let's not forget, Status Quo, Francis Rossi, they've been around for 50 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
It says something. He's very, very talented. Looking at my album, obviously between us, we actually made an album with 2 people. We didn't need any musicians. It was me playing. We both did acoustic on it. I played the drums, and he did every other instrument. I mean, Andy Brook did play. I think Andy Brook did play a bit of piano on You and I. So a little bit of tinkering on that. That's Andy Brook.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a plug there.
before I let you go, tell me kind of how does Andy fit into the jigsaw here?
He's massive.
Mm-hmm.
He's massive. I always said he's not just the engineer. You know, he will sit back. Listen, this is Francis. Francis is solely the producer, but Andy will certainly have input with stuff what we're doing. So he was a major part in the making of this album, Andy Brook, definitely. As I say, he played some keyboard on You and I, and hopefully, if we get to do more stuff, I'm sure we'll go forward with some more. You know, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, but when we do the live shows, Andy will be playing guitar. Although I do get people saying to me, "Is Francis going to make an appearance?" No, Francis will not be making an appearance. Which is, you know, it's Francis Rossi, producer. He produced the album. Yes, he played on it all, but he won't be. It's you know, the album's Leo Bryan, This Is Me. So we don't want it. We don't want it to be. He doesn't want it to be. Neither do I. Leo Bryan featuring Francis Rossi. It's not about that. But let's not take away from the fact that he produced a brilliant album, and I just hope it gets recognised for that, and he gets recognised for that.
Well, I hope so. Yeah. And when is this album going to be available? When will it be available?
I knew you was going to ask that, James. Mm-hmm. Jamie, I knew you was going to ask that. Well, we don't really know an album. We can't give away the album date at the moment because we're not quite sure. There's a few things going on behind the scenes at the moment. So the date's been taken off because it was on there, but it has been taken off. But later on in the year, but as soon as I do, Jamie, you'll be the first to know. I'll make sure I let you know. But it's not going to be long, but we can't say too much because there's things going on that we can't really talk about right now. But yeah, hopefully not long. The next single should be out on the 26th of March, but we may bring it forward. And once we do, you'll understand why we did this. But I must add, I won't say too much about it, but the next single can be credited to my wife because we've moved. We have another couple of singles. We've taken one out because she believed so strongly in this next song. I can't believe you've not bringing it out as a single. So we did something. Sent something to Francis and the PR team, and they just loved what she did. So yeah, we've moved the single. There's another one that's moved to April. Another one was taken out, and this one's been slotted in there. And everybody, hopefully, fingers crossed, around the world will know why we did this and why it should have been a single that's, you know, out to the world, because it's a fantastic song. And it's got a hell of a lot of meaning to the whole world, I would say.
Well, I look forward to finding out more about that. And I'd like to say thank you so much for giving up your time to talk to me here today. It's been an honor to talk to you because I've loved the 2 tracks that you have released so far, and I cannot wait to hear the album. So thank you.
You're welcome, Jamie. But it's been great talking to you. Thank you.